Hi, everyone. I'm Corinne Beardsley. Mary and this is Mary Frank. We're so honored to have her with this talk today. We're in her studio in Chelsea, and we have some of her works behind us. I'm just going to do a brief introduction, and then we're going to get into Mary's work. I'm Corinne Beardsley, and I teach at the New York Academy of Art. I teach a unusual materials course, and I'm also a sculptor. And we have been looking forward to the opportunity to share Mary Frank's work with the Academy community today. Mary and I met this summer when I was a resident at Birdcliff Woodstock Guild in Woodstock, New York. I learned that Mary was our neighbor, and she had me over to her studio. I had admired Mary's work for years because she was one of the only female sculptors in my ceramic textbooks from undergrad. Meeting her, we both felt kinship in our work, and our friendship has been growing over the past 3 months as I've been helping her in her studio. We put together a talk of her powerful works over the past 6 decades, centering on twin themes of social justice and preservation of the natural world. Mary has been making her work in her Manhattan and Hudson Valley studios for over 60 years, and we'll be having a retrospective at the Dorsey Museum at SUNY New Paltz, February to July 2022 in upstate New York. Thank you to the New York Academy for this opportunity to share Mary's work, and we will take questions at the end of the talk. Please, no technical questions, but you can put them in the chat and we'll go over them at the end of the talk. So whatever you think of, feel free to plug in, and then we'll take the ones that we'd like to discuss. So thank you all for coming, and here's a slideshow of Mary's work. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Also, Mary is represented by DC Moore Gallery and Elena Zeng Gallery in Woodstock, New York. DC Moore is in New York City. And this is an introduction to her show at SUNY New Paltz. We're going to start with some sculptures. And this is Mary's studio in Lakeville, New York.
These are clay pieces. They were actually based on having seen Sufi dancers and who whirled. And then when they came to the end of whirling, they just closed their arms. Oh, we're not there.
I think we're
okay.
visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
There we are.
Next.
Okay.
I was working with clay for about 30, 35, maybe 40 years. And it was an extraordinary material. Some of the oldest things, right, are clay. And it is actually the earth. Oh. This piece is also now cast in bronze. And as you can see, there are several parts. And so I could make many different legs till I got the legs that I thought I wanted. And this is probably a little bit larger than life size. This one is at the Metropolitan Museum. I don't know if they've ever shown it, but they have it. And it's Persephone. And I did have a show at the Brooklyn Museum with this piece and maybe 100 drawings and monoprints, which were connected to it. This was one of them. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a beautiful way to work because I loved the spaces between the sections. They was important for me as the clay itself. I think somebody, I forget who bought this, and they said they had to give up their bed because they didn't have space for it.
I think it was the Covingtons, but yeah, that's really funny.
This one may still be at the Whitney in a large group show from the collection at the museum. And swimming figures and figures at the water's edge has always been really inviting subject for me, where the water meets the land. Yeah. I don't remember what brought this on. It could have been a dream, but the things that I dream of, and I do dream a lot of work, but the pieces are never, of course, like the dream. Yeah. And this piece went through many, many, many changes. 1 horse, 2 horse, 2 riders, 1 rider. And people sometimes ask me, oh, why do you do horses? And what is it symbolic of? And of course, it could be symbolic of anything you like, but actually, horses are horses, right? Yeah. I did many heads, and some of them had slip or glaze imagery on the head, and they were often half heads, sometimes full, or 3/4. So it was maybe what's going on inside. I think so. Yeah. I had this wonderful, huge rock in the studio I had before the one I have now upstate. And so it was a great base to put a clay piece. Yeah. And I did a number of plaster figures using branches.
And then you have all those in the background too.
Yeah, and that rock is what you saw before with the clay piece that was on there. And then I put tiny pieces in the little, crevices. Okay. So subject, I did many drawings, monoprints, clay. Messenger. I don't know what the message is or was. If I made it now, I would know maybe more of the message, and it would be climate crisis.
There is a little horse
Yeah.
back there. Yeah.
Okay. I started actually carving wood, and mostly it was found wood, or sometimes people were cutting down a tree. And sometimes I found big pieces on the beach. I used to be on the Cape Cod, and pieces, sometimes very big pieces, would wash up. And carving was slow, and Yeah, endlessly taking away.
And that was some of the first sculpture that you did.
Yeah.
Was carving.
Yeah.
Yeah. From your mom's carving tools.
Yep.
Yeah.
This piece is actually based on, my mother was an artist, and I had a lot of her art books, which I took to bed with me. And there was this one piece, it's a very famous piece, an Etruscan bronze of a chimera. And I don't know really, I don't know if anyone knows the story of what it is, but for me, it was a very extraordinary combination of this lion and quite ferocious, out of whose side comes an ibex, but then the tail comes around and attacks the ibex. So many different things are condensed together in this one really, to me, frightening image. But this piece is paper mache, and all the paper mache, layers and layers, which of course you're only seeing the top layer, but they're all old monoprints that I tore up, which I didn't like, but I wanted to reuse them. And I did have a hard time making the serpent, the tail, attacking the ibex. It was difficult to do. Yeah. And this is another paper mache. More horses and ships, which you'll see reoccur a lot. This was the last show I had at DC Moore, where I've shown for, I think, 20, maybe 5 years. And these are all little pieces of bluestone. The Catskills, a lot of the Catskills is bluestone. It's what you walk on. And these are little, thin pieces of stone that I just decided to paint on. There's something very nice about painting on stone. Somebody asked me, what are you working on, Mary? I said, oh, I'm painting stones. They said, oh, that's been done. Yeah.
Not like this, though.
And then many of the stones you'll see later appear in paintings, actually. And this is a fungi. They grow horizontally on trees, and they're, of course, not helping the tree. They're sort of killing it. And I mostly drove around with an axe in my car so I could take these off trees when I found them. And I could only work on the fungi at a certain moment because it has to be sort of fresh to be able to cut in with even my fingernail or something sharp, and then it just oxidizes. So that's not paint there, that's just the oxidation from the fungi itself. And this, of course, is a little stick figure. Yeah. That's me, yeah. Here's a stone with a photograph of a clay sculpture that I took, and then more little stones with ships that I think of the refugees all over the world now. Presence and absence. Yeah, people coming, going, leaving, appearing, being born, disappearing. This is about 8 feet, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one of the main paintings with the messenger. And these are all pieces of paper that are collaged on. And some of them were finished pieces that I didn't think I would ever do anything else with, but then I needed them for this painting. I did a lot of triptychs, and here you're seeing the inside of one. And when I showed them, I guess at the Newberger and somewhere else in Virginia, a lot of them, Linda Nochlin wrote about them. And they said, well, how are you going to show them just before the opening? Open or closed? I said, of course, open and closed. That's the whole point of a triptych. And they said, oh, we can't do that. Insurance won't cover it. I said, well, too bad, then they won't be covered by insurance, because it was very nice to see people opening and closing them, half open, half closed, seeing others that were open or closed. So it was active for the people there. Touch, not don't touch. Yes.
Mhm.
This is the outside of a triptych, and then you'll see the inside. So you can see where the two parts would close over.
Is there a relationship between the front and the inside?
Of course. But it's for you to work on. I like it when I have to work looking at other people's work. This is a recent painting. It was in the last show in the city. And I called it, or was it like this? Because I don't know how it was. And it seems to me everything as we know now, certainly, if we didn't know before, is always changing.
And these are the pieces of stone
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, these are all attached to the painting. And these are the figures from the Natural History Museum. I think she's called Lucy. And when I was there drawing them, a family came by with, I think, a 4 or 5-year-old boy, little boy, and he looked at them and he said, "Mommy, Daddy, Mommy, Daddy." It's great, yeah. This painting was one of the first quite large paintings that I did. It's sort of a triptych, but not one that closes. And you see all the different parts that come together. And in many places there were other paintings, but then I took them out. So you have the absences of where the painting was before. And this, I think, was maybe used on Sharon Olds' book of poetry. I love to do collaborations, and I've done quite a few with all different people.
You mean it was used for the cover of
Cover
her
of the book, I think
Mhm.
so. I've lost track. I've done a lot of book covers. I like it because then people are holding them. Yeah. Okay. This is one, all the features here are stones. This was an old painting that I was never, it had a woman holding a boat, but completely different. All the outside remained, but I changed the whole inside. And something I like about the very three-dimensionality of working with the stones is then when you move a little, then the expression changes.
Yeah, this piece is really three-dimensional
Yeah.
with the stones coming out.
And I did quite a lot of work on glass, on the underside of the glass, but in this case, it was then put over a charcoal drawing. And I think it was the only figurative piece in a book I did with Peter Matheson, Shadows of Africa, which were all animals. And his beautiful writing, powerful. Yeah.
This one's kind of crawling like a animal.
Mm-hmm. This is Leap for Terry Tempest Williams, a writer that I love and admire, and she's just done wonderful talks. She was teaching at Harvard Divinity School, and she did talks with all different people, some very well known, some not, all based on climate crisis. And one woman, a Black woman from California, showed a very small clip of a film. I wanted to see the whole film, but what you saw was a government building, and in it, what looked like a furnace coming off a table, but not a furnace enclosed. And over the furnace is a gun, and the gun is being melted, swords into plowshares. And then that was cast when liquefied into a mold, which I believe was a star or a starfish. And she melted more than one gun. Very powerful. And the talks were extraordinary. Okay. Drawing is at the center of my life. I think it's at the center of lots of people's work, people's lives. And you can do it with nothing, next to nothing. And you don't need batteries. And I taught drawing for many, many years in different places. Lots of birds, many, many, many birds. Yeah.
This is a collage of birds that we put together in Mary's studio recently. Just
Okay. This is a drawing that was done on special paper, and then it's part of a book, actually, of offset drawings. A man gave me all these papers and a special pencil so I could draw and also write things and not have it be backwards, as we are.
mhm.
Yeah. Goats. I love goats. Mm. Yeah, I never thought until I made that drawing why centaurs were always men. No reason.
I love how her leg,
Yeah.
you know, kind of, there's the action.
Okay. Yeah, that seems of this time, but I did it a long time ago. Lots and lots of owls, paintings, drawings, sculptures. They are remarkable. When people, ornithologists, write about birds, when they write about owls, they go into some very special vocabulary. because a sparrow across a room or a road, you hear the flight of the tiny wings. But an owl with 5-foot span could fly in front of you with your eyes closed, you would hear nothing. You would not know, which is why they're incredible predators. Right? More swimmers.
Mhm. So many of these drawings.
Ink is extraordinary. There's nothing like it. And Rembrandt made ink scrapes from the stove, and other people did too. But these are India ink.
This is a video that we've been putting together some of Mary's ink drawings and seeing how they work together. I might turn off the sound. This is just. The repetition of the figures and how the edges of the landscape met up.
For years, I was on the Cape drawing, lying down. Sometimes I dug into the sand so I could get my head lower, and drawing people in the water and on the beach. It was a wonderful way to learn to draw.
We've done a few of these videos. This is just one of them, but they're a pretty nice way to relook at the work.
Okay.
And this is that series.
This drawing is probably the earliest thing that you're seeing, so must be probably like 52 or 3. And this, as you can see, is full of holes. No explanation. Holes and tears and cutouts, yeah.
I hate that we're going through these images so fast because they're each so dense with stories and content. I mean, there's a lot.
These are photographs and they're inkjet prints. And I never photographed until the last, whatever it is, 10, 12 years. And I never wanted to. I loved photography always. And I'm sure was very influenced by it. But I started actually after a show I had in Woodstock at Elena Zhang's gallery with Alan Hoffman. I started just painting on my floor in the studio, just painting different images.
Sorry, do you want me to go back?
No, go forward if you would. I was looking for things where there's images painting
This
on the
one?
floor.
That
This one, yeah. This is on the floor, and then I put things on the floor, and that's how I started taking pictures, because I was tripping on the things in the studio that I put down, flowers or papers or little sculptures. And so then I just went to the drugstore and bought a, very cheap camera so that I could just get images. And then I began to get very involved with photographing things. If you want to go back, because yeah. So this is
Oh, yes.
the sculptures, and of course this is milkweed. And that's what the only thing that monarch butterflies live off.
And you have all these little, what you label as puppets that become, or the little
Yeah,
pieces
puppets.
that,
The cut
the
paper.
cut paper
Yeah.
figures, yeah. And this is the creature symbol.
And these are just floated on water. And here there's water behind the cutout of, and I think I love nasturtiums, and those are cutoffs, and you're seeing the roots growing. And these were my children when they were little. And I think the other title for this, which isn't there, is Every Night When the Sun Goes Down. Yep. And this is a photograph of part of a sculpture that I made, which combines two different paintings and burnt wood, as you see, and sculpture and paper and stones. Yeah.
One of your cutouts.
And this is one of the shadow papers. You'll see more of those later, just alone, but here it's combined.
And these are printed and,
No.
well, they're printed on aluminum plates.
No.
The finals, no?
This is an encaustic, and with the stone and the leaves. Encaustic is very beautiful. More burnt wood. These are what I call shadow papers. I cut in, which is a form of drawing, and but nothing is cut out. So then light is what creates the image. And I did a book called Skies in Blossom that Jackie Onassis, yes, she was the, she did the book, which came out actually right after she died. And it was with the poetry of Emily Dickinson. And so they change depending on if it's snowing outside behind or what the light is. And but they need some kind of light, either natural or electric. These are posters. I've done posters from way before Vietnam, and I'm still doing them. And this one, of course, is the Mexican border. And I need to do more. And sometimes I do them with other people. I worked with Joyce Kozloff and We Make America, lots of women, some men, working in her studio, sometimes in mine. And they got used in, demonstrations of all different kinds. And a lot of them never, I don't see them ever again. And this, you know what this is. And this is one piece, this is one side and this is the other side. Initially, I had no words on it, and I walked by myself on the street with it. also used it in demonstrations, but it's actually very interesting to go alone carrying something, as many people do now, I think. And because people first think you're trying to sell them something, which of course was not what I had in mind. And then some people asked me what that was. This was the time of the Iraq War. So to me, it was evident what it was, but since it wasn't to people, I explained, and I had all different responses. And it is very, very different to be alone with any image. And of course, this is soldiers. Okay. I did this was the 10th anniversary of human rights. So that's a long time ago. And this is actually a very small sculpture, and it looks quite large. But it was amazing, the event when they had celebrating the 10th anniversary of it. They had lots of chairs out, 12 chairs, but they had 10 people that they were honoring. The other 2 chairs were people who had been killed. They were all people who had done extraordinary work trying to protect human rights in different places all over the world. And this one I did just on my own. It was a photograph, and it was actually before, where is it in Russia? Chernobyl. And I wanted to put it in stores. And it was just when there was going to be a big demonstration against nuclear explosions. And so I think I wrote on many of them, there'll be a march. And mostly no stores wanted to take it. They said, some of them saw the image and understood it and even appreciated what was being said. But they said, oh, we can't do anything political. And I thought that's pretty interesting. And I imagine Germany, say Berlin, where they would have had institutes for opera, art, writing, music, philosophy, everything. And if someone would have come to those institutes and said, look what's happening, 1932, 3, 4, whatever. And they would say, oh, yes, it is terrible, but we can't do anything political, right? And that drives me crazy. Next. There she is, AOC. She got a button. My studio assistant for many, many years, Vanessa Hoheb, gave it to her. And she was happy with it. And Vanessa knows my life and my work better than me. And the truth buttons, I think, were up to $23,000. I'd made the posters, and then someone said, why didn't you make a button? This was after Trump, got elected. And so it's not very expensive. I made buttons. And then I was giving them to people. Then someone said, why don't you sell them and give the money to something you want to give it to? I could think of many things to give it to, but decided on Planned Parenthood, which needs it desperately, desperately. And I got shops to carry them and people, and $3 each. Yeah, we give some away too. Yeah. Solar cookers. As anyone who knows me, I talk about this endlessly. This is a piece of very, very good news. Solar Cookers International teaches solar cooking in many parts of the world. And we did a demonstration in front of the UN on the sidewalk with the simplest cookers. These are, you can make one yourself. They give you the design free. And we cooked rice, beans, vegetables, curry, rice, meat, fish, eggs, bread, cake, and purified water. And people from about 47 countries. We thought we'd have about 80 people, but we had about 200. So they got tiny, tiny tastes, and they all had tears streaming down their faces, men and women, because I think they had heard about it, but they'd never seen it, and they'd never tasted the food. So they were struck by the miracle. The sun is free, no pollution. They were just at the big climate conference in Glasgow, and they just got a big prize, actually an award for climate crisis. And I really believe that every leaf, every root, feather, fish scale or gill, all water, roots, rock, earth, every breathing insect, elephant, human being, everything is affected by the climate. And everyone can do something. And we have to do it every day. I've shown with DC Moore for, I think, about 25 years, also Elena Zhang, Alan Hoffman in Woodstock. And both of these galleries have shown, I think, wonderful work by many people. The show at DC Moore right now, Whitfield LaBelle, is extraordinary. It's both monumental and tender, which is a rare combination. Uh-huh. Well, that's me, yeah. I've done a lot of work with different theaters, and it's taught me a lot, being able to draw rehearsals, dancers, musicians. My husband, Leo Treitler, is a musician and writer. And so I've had the incredible privilege to be working and hearing music, different people playing, sometimes groups, sometimes with Max's son, cellist, or with singers.
I think that wraps up all the images.
Yeah, so
Thank you so much to the New York Academy of Art for hosting this talk, to DC Moore and Elena Zhang. And make sure to check Mary's show in February at the Samuel Dorsky Museum in SUNY New Paltz. It'll be curated by David Hornung.
who's a wonderful artist and writer. And it's been an incredible pleasure working with him.
And the show will be up till the 17th of next year. So please take a trip on the train up to, or however you can travel to go see Mary's show. Most of these works will be there. There's going to be over 150 works. So we just selected some of them. And let me just get out of this PowerPoint. Okay. And we'll take some questions. Okay.
No questions.
We have a question about the messenger, the bronze sculpture.
Yeah,
Seems to, the character seems to show up in a few places.
and what's the question?
It says, it seems to show up in multiple places. Is it a character within the piece, the inspiration that comes to you, or something else entirely?
I think all of the above.
Any other questions? Well, we're sitting here in front of some of Mary's new works in her studio.
No more questions? Fantastic.
Oh, how do you think of the names for your works?
I suppose good question. Mostly after, and then I get in trouble with the galleries because I change the titles. But almost always after, yeah. And it's just when I'm looking, and then maybe sort of quite suddenly. I don't want them to explain too much.
Will there be a catalog for the Dworsky?
There will be a catalog by David Hoffman, and it's, I think it will be quite beautiful. What he wrote, he's a very good writer. He gets really inside work.
Here's a good one. What message would you tell young artists with a future with climate change and various crises?
What I would tell everybody else, but I have seen work, a lot on the internet, and in some cases in demonstrations I've been in, but from all over the world, people who are not artists, and they are just driven by desperation and motivation of very powerful kind, and some of them are just making a mark, drawing something or writing one word or a few words on a piece of newspaper or some paper they pick up off the street. And I would be very proud to have made many of the things I've seen. Yeah, and I think that's something actually of this time, very much combination of the pandemic and the horrendous fascism that's coming up, and climate, yeah. But then people make extraordinary things, and on their own bodies, or just with enormous invention. Yeah.
Last week you were mentioning something that you wanted to share with the students about just making a sign for the deli to say no plastic bags, or to ask people to bring your bags,
Yeah. Yeah, I thought all art students, the least they could do would be make a sign and bring it into any store where they shop, because they're just handing you things double, triple, quadruple packed in plastic, more than ever, although they know absolutely that it's killing everything living in the sea, and not only the sea, of course.
One more question, or if I'm just reading them as they come in. Once you photograph your assemblage work, do the actual objects get taken apart?
Yeah, mostly, yep. Because I'm photographing all different things, natural objects or things or water, and pieces of my work or pieces of something else. Yeah.
Here's a good question. Would you speak to your experience of being an artist who is a woman, and what, if any, advice would you give emerging female artists?
I don't know about advice. It is very complex, certainly, and it's better certainly than it was, but still difficult, and in many places probably almost impossible. And the whole thing of having children and being an artist, and I suffered with it quite a lot, and I think my children did also, because those are big, important, life-changing. Yeah. So it creates, and some people are able to do it, better, but you need help, certainly.
You ready for another question?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you still working in clay at all?
Mostly not, but some, and mostly I've made maybe 200 or 300 little clay cylinder or stamps, which are sort of like my Babylonian stamps, which means they're made in reverse. They're negatives, and then they're made of clay, but then they're stamped into fresh clay, which is what people did for thousands of years. It's actually a form of printing. It's not usually referred to as such. And there are images of animals, figures, people, faces, sometimes words. But mostly I'm not doing large clay pieces the way I did quite a while ago.
What have you learned from these non-human beings while making images of them?
What have I learned? That we are also them, right? And we know that more than ever as they become more extinct, which is pretty striking, because so much more is known now. And yeah, and there's so much to learn from whether it's a dragonfly or a monkey, which we're so close to. Yeah.
Our friend Vanessa wants to know, is there any material you haven't worked with that you want to try?
She's great. She worked on the Statue of Liberty. The nose was broken, and she was up there 350 feet up on a scaffold above the helicopters and the boats, fixing the nose of the Statue of Liberty. So I just want you to know that.
She says, no, this is about you.
Oh. What materials haven't I worked in? Lots of materials. I would love to work I don't know, leaves, grasses, flowers, branches, more branches. I have worked with some, but just a little. And there must be materials that I don't even know what they are.
She says she's making notes.
She's making notes
so that we can try them. And this is Rosie.
Yeah.
Rosie, our pup, or your pup.
Yeah. Any more?
Well, thank you all for joining us. This was a pleasure to share Mary's work. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact me at the Academy.
Ask Cora.
Yeah, thank you to the Academy. Thank you to Mary for taking the time to share your work. And it's been so much fun to review all of your and learn more about your work every time we work together. So it's been wonderful. Thank you guys. We're gonna close this out. And also there will be a recording of this on YouTube if you want to share it with your friends in a couple weeks. Again, try and make it up to Mary's show at the Dorsky next year. Her work in person is just remarkable. So
look up solarcookers.org. You'll see videos from all over the world.
Terry Tempest is here.
Where is she?
She said,
What'd she say?
thank you and some sweet things. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, Terry.